Greetings and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Even though it is slightly past the middle of the year, I'm a little late, but still doing this tag. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be sitting here and chatting with you guys, just kind of reflecting on the beginning half of the year. I feel like I have had a really good reading year. I will say, in comparison to other years, I am not reading as quickly, but I am having so many more 5 stars. I used to read like 20-30 books a month, and now I'm averaging about 12 books a month, but I'm having so many 5 stars. I am reading all types of genres: romance, cozy mysteries, fantasies. I've even read some thrillers this year. So I am honestly having such a good reading year, even though I'm not reading as much as I normally do. Quality over quantity? I don't know. I do wish I had a little bit more time to read, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So let's go ahead and jump into the mid-year book freakout tag. The first question is always the hardest question, and it is the best book you've read in 2024. Just one? Like, that is so freaking hard. I feel like I've had so many 5 stars, but I think I have settled on one book. Guys, okay, side note, whenever I tell someone I'm a reader or they find out I love to read, the first question is always, without fail, what's your favorite book? And I kid you not, in that moment, I freeze like I am right now. That question is equivalent to you setting a factory reboot in my brain. Blank. I cannot remember a single author, book, word I've ever read in my entire life. And I always end up spouting the most random book ever, and it's never actually my favorite book. So I really thought long and hard about this question, and I wanted to just narrow it down to one, and I did. And I think I'm going to give it to Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling. I have a whole reading vlog on this book if you want to check it out and see my reading experience. I got very emotional in that video because this book, I don't know, I just related to it in a lot of ways. It became something very special to me. Whenever something is like my all-time favorite, I do usually have like that emotional connection to it. But anyways, this is a dark academia sapphic romance with a little bit of a Medusa retelling. It does deal with some darker themes, so I absolutely would recommend checking out the trigger warnings before picking it up. One of our heroines, Lex, in the beginning of the book is going through a very tough time. She is actually assaulted by someone that she thought that she could really trust, her college professor. When it happens, the school, particularly the president of the college, who was actually our heroine's mentor, tries to cover it up and make her seem like she is crazy. So when she comes back for the next semester, she comes back with a vengeance. She wants revenge against the man that hurt her, and also revenge against the institution that covered it up. In that journey of revenge, that is how our other heroine comes in, because she is the daughter of the president of the university. So a little bit of an enemies to lovers trope. This having a Medusa retelling, it has a lot of references to Greek literature and classic literature. I feel like if you're a classic lit girly, you will actually adore this book because the writing is so unbelievably stunning. It is dark academia and had that very lyrical writing. I think it just excelled in so many things: the writing style, the romance, the side characters. You really just root for the characters in this book, and I feel like it embodies the epitome of female rage, but also kind of the general queer experience. And I just I love sapphic romances so much, and I feel like this just hit the mark perfectly, and I cannot tell you how special I think this book is. So much so, I actually have 4 copies of this book. It's so fucking ridiculous. So I have 2 of the original paperbacks. I have this one, which was like my original copy that I highlighted, and then I have this one, which is signed by Gianna Darling. My really good friends Tiffany from Tiff Talks Pages saw her at a signing and got it signed for me, so this one is really special. Another paperback, but this was an edition that Hello Lovely Box did. And then lastly, I have this gorgeous hardcover copy. I think this was a signing exclusive. Tell me this isn't like the most beautiful, stunning, amazing thing you've ever seen. Love the foiled letters on this so much, and I cherish each one of those editions. So yeah, I definitely think that is going to be my favorite book of 2024. I can't see anything else like beating it. Next question was best sequel that I've read in 2024. I read a lot of good sequels and a lot of good series. I feel like this was a year where I was really finishing series that I've started, but I think I have to give it to the Dragons of Ember Hollow series. This is a trilogy that came out this year, and I think each installment is beautiful. I gave them all 5 stars. First book is called Twilight of Embers. This is a reverse harem dragon shifter romance. It follows our heroine Hayden as she... Hayden? Is that your name? I swear I love this book. Hold on. Hayden, yeah. Making sure. Sorry. It follows our heroine Hayden as she is headed to college. She's had a pretty rough childhood. Both of her parents were brutally murdered when she was younger, and she has kind of like bounced around the foster care system. So now that she's headed to college, she definitely just wants to lay low and start this new life for herself. But when she gets to the campus, she ends up having a connection with a few different guys. They turn out not only to be her fated mates, but they're also dragon shifters. It follows her romance with her sexy dragon shifter mates. I love Tessa Hale. I've read a lot of her backlist, and I typically tend to enjoy it overall. She mainly writes fantasy, paranormal, reverse harem books, and I just think she does them flawlessly. I say this all the time, but I eat her books up like candy because they're so engaging, fast-paced. A lot of times they end on cliffhangers, but I'm kind of like here for it. Twilight of Embers was the first book, and I really liked both books that followed it. We have Midnight of Ashes and Dawn of Flames. Continues to follow our heroine's journey as she is navigating this new paranormal world. I think she's so good at what she does. Like, I love the covers. I love all of the sprayed edges. Everything just connects so beautifully. And I will say that if Tessa Hale is writing a series, every book is going to end on a cliffhanger, but it does get resolved in that final book. And she does it in a way that's just really engaging. And also, she writes hella fast because I think all 3 of these books were released in 2024. So we got a complete trilogy in 1 year. So I don't mind the cliffhangers. But yeah, I absolutely love her. I have talked about her a ton on my channel because I think she's great. Next question is a new release you haven't read but want to. Oh my god, so many. The first one that comes to mind is Business Casual by B.K. Borison. This is the fourth and last book in the Love Light series. I really cherish this series. It is something really special to me. Again, whenever I have like favorite books, there's always some emotion attached to it. I loved the first 3 installments of this series. They're very cozy, small town romances. I actually have a couple of bookish tattoos for the other books in the series. I cannot wait for it. I have the highest of hopes. This better not let me down because the first 3 books in the series are like all-time favorites, 5 stars. And I have tattoos for each book in the series. So if this one sucks, like... This one is kind of like an opposites attract romance, grumpy sunshine pairing where a heroine is the grumpy one. Again, cozy small town romance vibes. Very excited. And I'll probably film a reading vlog for this one. The one that I do want to read is Another Love Song by Julie Soto. I read Forget Me Not by Julie Soto earlier this year. That's a very angsty second chance romance. And I loved it. Like, I was actually surprised how much I loved it because typically I don't read a ton of contemporary romances. It's kind of described as like a rivals to lovers. 2 characters are professional musicians. I believe they play the violin. They're both auditioning and working for the first chair spot. So they're kind of like competing against one another. I really like the cover. I met Julie Soto at a book signing and she was so unbelievably lovely. So I can't wait to get to this one. The one that I'm actually reading right now is A Murder at the Movies by Ellie Alexander. This is the 2nd installment of her Secret Bookcase mystery series. I read The Body in the Bookstore last month and gave it 5 stars. Ellie Alexander is really my favorite cozy mystery author of all time, and I just thought this was such a fun series. First book follows our heroine Annie, who works at a bookstore in a small town in Northern California. The employees in the bookstore are really struggling to make ends meet. To gain new readers and traction for the business, she decides to host a mystery festival. The other small businesses in the town are also participating, so it's a really fun festival that is bringing in a lot of different people, especially people that our heroine actually went to college with. At the beginning of the book, our heroine finds one of her old college classmates dead in the bookstore, so she needs to figure out what's going on. Loved it, 5 stars. Cannot wait to read A Murder at the Movies. I'm really excited to pick up this one because there was almost like an ongoing mystery that didn't resolve completely in the first book, which is kind of interesting. Typically that doesn't happen with cozies, but I just really thought this was a fun, bookish cozy, kind of different from her Bake Shop mystery series. So yeah, definitely want to get to that. Next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And this one is another Ellie Alexander book. It is Sticks and Stones, which is the 19th installment of her Bake Shop mystery series. I love the Bake Shop Mystery Series. The baking cozy that takes place in Ashland, Oregon, in a town that is really well known for their Shakespeare theater, follows Jules, who runs her family bake shop with her mom and a wonderful cast of employees, and it just follows them, and each book has a different mystery. I love all of them. I am completely caught up on the series, all 18 books, which I think is a true testament to how much I really enjoy it, that I've stuck it out this long. And there will never be a time where she comes out with a new Bake Shop Mystery Cozy and I don't read it. So obviously I'm excited for that one. Another one I am pretty excited for is Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. Lana Ferguson, to me, is such a cool author. I think she only has 3 other books, but they're all so vastly different and all amazing. The Fake Mate was a fake dating Omegaverse. Nanny is a single dad nanny romance. And then I know she also has a hockey one. And this one, I believe, is like a monster. I have like a hair right here. I'm so sorry. This one, I believe, is like a monster romance with the Loch Ness Monster. I'm so incredibly intrigued. The range is amazing, and the fact that she can come out with all of these different types of books and do it so well is really fascinating to me, and I'm excited to just read whatever she comes out with, truthfully. Oh, the next one, not an exciting question. The biggest disappointments. I do have some low rated books this year. Not many, but some. I don't love to talk about books that I don't like. My favorite thing is to really give you guys recommendations and to gush about my favorite books. But there are some that were disappointments for the year. And I'm just going to breeze through them really quick. If you'd like to see a video of all of the books that I rated lowly this year and that were disappointments, let me know. I know it's not usually my vibe, but let me know. I could do that for you because there are some that I was pretty disappointed in. Now, though, I'll just keep it to one, and this book I have been pretty vocal about not liking, and that is Butcher and the Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is a very well-loved book. I can understand why other people liked it, but it was not for me. This book is kind of described as both a dark romance and a romantic comedy. It follows the romance between 2 serial killers and kind of is like a Robin Hood situation. Our 2 characters kill the serial killers, kill the bad guys. Now, the concept of that I don't really feel is like completely original. I have seen it done before, but it is a trope and a concept that I do typically enjoy. However, this, again, missed the mark for me. I don't feel like it was funny enough to be a romantic comedy. Being a romance between 2 serial killers, I don't even feel like it was that dark. Like, there were some uncomfortable moments, but even those moments just felt unnecessary and didn't really lend themselves to the story. I also don't feel like it was romantic enough to be a romantic comedy, and it was so incredibly slow burn. Characters spent months and months of not even being around each other, which is fine. Like, I don't mind a slow burn romance, but then it kind of jumped into them being completely obsessed with each other. There's no bridge between, like, them actually falling for each other, and I couldn't, like, believe or root for their emotional or physical connection, and it's just, I don't know. I didn't like it. I have many thoughts on it, but I'm not going to harp on it too freaking much because I know it's a very well-loved book, but I think when I first read it, I was like, oh yeah, it was fine. 3 stars, 4 stars. And then I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, no, I actually really didn't like it. I gave it a 2-star. It is what it is. I think it could have been funnier, it could have been darker, it could have been more romantic, and that ice cream scene, what the fuck was that? Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. And yes, I did read the audiobook for that book. Anytime I say I didn't really love it, everyone always says that the audiobook really made the story. I did listen to the audiobook, still wasn't a huge fan. I have other disappointing books that I read this year, but I felt like that one was just the most surprising because I went into it really expecting to love it. Other books that were disappointments, just in case you were curious, An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. That was a sapphic dark academia romance. It was also a Carmilla retelling. That one was also very surprising that it was disappointing because I love A Dowry in Blood by S.T. Gibson. That is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm a huge fan of vampire literature in general. I have read Carmilla, like the original work, and also really loved that book. So I was over the moon excited for An Education in Malice, but it just didn't hit. I feel like we could have gotten more dark academia vibes, more enemies to lovers vibes. I feel like we really did not get our 2 heroines together enough to really feel invested in their romance, and for it being a Carmilla retelling, it was barely, like literally barely a Carmilla retelling. So So sad, so freaking sad that I wasn't going to go into too much detail, but I did have some disappointing reads. Another one was Enter into the Multiverse by C. Rochelle. This one I actually feel so strongly about. It's the fourth book in a series, and the entire series has a really cool concept. It's a bunch of male romances of superheroes and supervillains. Love the concept of the author's more humorous writing style, and it's so fun and it's so campy, and I have like endlessly recommended the first 3 books in the series. So when the 4th book came out, because the whole series follows like a very prominent villainous family, so each book is like a different sibling. When the 4th book came out, I was over the moon excited until I realized that the twins, because there's twins, they didn't get their own books, okay? It was lumped together in one book. Not only do they share the same hero in this book, but they also share a mind link that is open and connected even during sexy times. Like, I just could not. I was getting the ick the entire book, like literally the entire book. And then it went into this weird alien sci-fi plot line that was just not really well developed or described in the previous book, so it didn't make sense in this book. So I gave this book 1 star. This is my only 1 star of the year, and I was livid when I read it. I had to like take a moment and be like, what? Like, okay, I'm done. Let's move on. Okay, let's talk about good things. And the next question is the biggest surprise of the year. Oh, this is a fun question. I would say the biggest surprise of the year was me being in my fantasy era. Okay, I was never a fantasy girly before this. This year, I decided to pick up Brandon Sanderson, guys. Okay? What a time. What a journey. What an honor. I freaking have loved every bit of my introduction into the Cosmere. Brandon Sanderson is such a popular author. People have raved and recommended him over and over and over, and I was just like not interested. And then I picked up Tress of the Emerald Sea. I think I picked this up because I saw it in a reading vlog and the premise sounded really interesting, and I was immediately sucked into the writing style and the story, and I ended up reading a bunch of his books afterwards. He has such an extensive backlist, so I have just like slowly been diving into the Cosmere, but truly have had the best time. I started off with his secret projects, and I'm happy that I did because they technically do connect to the Cosmere, but they can also be read as standalones, and I feel like it's less daunting to read one of these first. One of my favorites is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. It follows our hero, who is a nightmare painter. He lives in a world that is shrouded by darkness and nightmares, and his job is to paint these nightmares into inanimate objects to protect his town. And it follows our heroine that almost lives in like a completely different world than he does. She is known as a Yoki Hijo, which is a very noble profession, but also very lonely. She has the ability to summon spirits and request wishes and items that the town really needs, so her entire life is dedicated to serving her people. One day she summons a spirit, and the spirit actually asks her for help, and it almost seems trapped. So when that happens, she is abruptly thrusted into our other hero's world. It's kind of like a Freaky Friday situation. They have to work together to not only save the people in their town, but also figure out what this spirit was saying to them. I feel like I can never describe this book and like fully do it justice because it is such a unique trope. The magic system, the fantasy world, everything about it is so incredibly unique. It also has a huge discussion on art, like real artists versus AI, and how AI can never really capture the passion that artists can. It also has beautiful chapter art, like between each chapter. It's just visually stunning. The audiobook was great. The story was fantastic. Loved the character so much. By the end, I was bawling my fucking eyes out. If you are a romance reader trying to get into high epic fantasy, I actually think this is a really good one because it does have romance. And people have told me that this is probably the most romantic book Brandon Sanderson has ever written, and I totally see that because it does have a very sweet romance in it. So, love, love, love. Love. I know it sounds shocking that I put Brandon Sanderson in like the surprise of the year, but it was a surprise for me and my reading taste for I would say like 3 solid years. I was reading predominantly romance and that was it. So it's been fun to kind of branch out a little bit, read more cozy mysteries, more fantasy, and that's kind of like why I put the fantasy books in this question. Next up is a new favorite author. I mean, I could technically give it to Brandon Sanderson. I could give it to Gianna Darling too, because Serpentine Valentine was the first book I read by her. But I think I'm going to give it to Tal Bauer. Now, Tal Bauer is an author that I read literally the last week of 2023, like December 2023, headed into January of 2024. So like it barely made it this year for this question. I feel like I didn't get to talk about him last year because I read him later in the year, so I'm going to put him for this question. Tal Bauer writes predominantly male-male romances that are just deeply emotional and so freaking romantic. One of my favorites is You and Me. This is a male-male single dad romance. This book starts by following Luke, who is really going through such a tough time in his life. Ex-wife tragically passed away. He was in quite a emotionally abusive marriage. He wasn't happy in his marriage, and the reasons of her death are quite traumatizing. For him and his son have quite a strained relationship. His son is just an angsty teenager, and in a way to connect with him a little bit more, he ends up volunteering for his high school football team. This is where he meets our other hero, Landon, who is also a single dad and the president of the PTA. Two sons are best friends, so they end up spending a lot of time together, and it follows their romance. The book follows Luke as he is dealing with grief, reconnecting with his son. I wouldn't say he's having like a midlife crisis, but he's really just struggling to find what he wants in life. He is also going through a bi awakening, being attracted to a man for the very first time. Just so much is going on with his character, and you really root for him the entire time. This has a huge found family trope, which is a trope that Tal Bauer does incredibly well. He does it almost in like every one of his books, like Gravity and the rest of the story, and even How to Say I Do. So I just think he knows what he's doing. Tal Bauer has really mastered his crafts, and if you like books that feel like our characters are true soulmates, and you like the found family aspect, and you like the emotion that comes with like a romantic connection, read Tal Bauer. His books are flawless. Another author that I really do love, and I think I've read for the first time this year, is Marie Renard. She only has 2 books published right now. They're both male-male paranormal romances, and they are so campy and so fun. If you're looking for some like bonkers paranormal romances, Marie Renard. Her books are actually really, really fun. Next up is newest fictional crush, like a book boyfriend or a book girlfriend. I really did love the hero from Forget Me Not. He is just like this grumpy hero, but also kind of like a cinnamon roll. This is an angsty second chance romance. Our heroine is a professional wedding planner, and she gets like the client of her dreams. It is a celebrity wedding that is going to be highly televised, but she has to end up working with her ex. Her ex-boyfriend is a very popular florist that the clients have requested. The two of them dated many years ago, and it did not end well, and now they're reconnecting but also having to work together. Not only told in dual point of views, but is also hopping between past and present, seeing them fall in love for the first time, how they ended up breaking up, and then their second chance romance. Love our hero. He is just the best, like this grumpy cinnamon roll. That's the best way I can describe him. Next is a new favorite character. That one's pretty easy, and I'm gonna give it to Tress from Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is a high epic fantasy that is kind of a Princess Bride reimagining. It was the first Brandon Sanderson book that I read, and I just loved it so freaking much. Follows our heroine Tress, who lives in a small town surrounded by the Emerald Sea, hence the title. The sea is not what you would imagine it to be, like an ocean of water. It is actually a sea that is filled with spores that move through bursts of air, and if they are exposed to any fluid of any kind, a drop of sweat, they have different reactions and they're very dangerous. A lot of them actually explode. It is very dangerous to travel these seas. In fact, it is forbidden unless you are doing trading or have explicit permission from the king. Best friend on the island, his name is Charlie. He is the son of a very prominent man on the island, and he actually gets sent away to travel these very dangerous seas. And our heroine gets very worried after a couple of months of him not coming back, so she decides to go on this grand adventure to go save her best friend and the love of her life, Charlie. I think our heroine was so badass. I loved her. Yes, this is a grand adventure, epic fantasy, so many fun side characters, but our heroine is truly the star of the show. Such a good friend. She becomes a pirate captain. Like, I just loved her strength and her independence and her everything. Like, she was just the best, and you root for her the entire book. I also really loved Hoyd. He was the narrator of this story because it's kind of told to you like a fairy tale. Hoyd is a character that you see throughout the entire Cosmere universe. That's like a fun Easter egg. He's really cool. I also really like Light Song from Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, when it comes to like favorite characters, a lot of them are characters within the Cosmere because I really loved Brandon Sanderson's books this year. Next question is books that made you cry. I'm a huge crybaby. A huge crybaby. Like, I cry all the time. I cry when I'm happy, angry, sad. So honestly, like, 1,000 books made me cry this year. The book that made me cry was In the Shadow Longing by Marina Vivancos. Marina Vivancos is one of my favorite authors of all time. I talk about her literally all the time. I have a whole video on her entire backlist that I'll leave down below. Mainly writes on Kindle Unlimited. She has a collection of queer romances that are so freaking romantic, but they're also really emotional because a lot of them have such good representation for not only the queer experience, but also just dealing with mental health. And all of her books make me sob like a baby, like an actual baby. Shadow Longing is the third book in the Coven Ties series. I recommend reading the entire series. It's set in a dom-sub universe, which is very similar to Omegaverse, where people are born either as dominants or submissives, and depending on their designation, they require like different biological things. Also magical because it follows different witches in this small town coven. You can technically read them out of order. I just think it's more enjoyable to read the whole series. But in this, Shadow Longing follows our hero Cross, who is a dominant. He has quite a dark past. He comes from a coven that participated in chaos magic, which is kind of like blood magic. It's this really awful, forbidden, dark magic. Him and another witch in the coven really start to realize all of the awful things that are happening. So they report this coven to the magical council and get them disbanded. And it's because of them that a lot of lives are saved. However, our hero is feeling so much guilt for being a part of this coven in the first place. He also did a lot of awful things in his past, so he's really kind of going through those emotions of feeling like such a terrible person, but the people around him are telling him he's amazing and he's a great friend, and he doesn't believe it. Really struggling to create romantic connections and hasn't been able to seen as a dom in a really long time. So he ends up going to an agency to hire a professional submissive to kind of help him through these emotions, and it follows his romance with that submissive. Such a unique series, very unique dynamics. Dom sub universe is very like niche, a very niche trope that I feel like not a lot of people would understand unless you've read it, but I feel like Marina Vivancos writes it so well. So this one really made me cry because our hero is just like, he has so much in his past that he's working through. He's really struggling with his mental health, and it's just like that feeling of not feeling good enough. You know, like a lot of people could relate to that, and when you're reading it, you just feel it so much, and I weeps like a baby, an actual baby. Next up is a book that made you happy, kind of the opposite of that other question. And I'm gonna say Burnout by Rebecca Genshak. The book is so much fun. I've read a couple of books by this author this year and have so enjoyed them. The book is a sports romance following our heroine, who is an Olympic gymnast, and our hero, who is a professional motocross player. He is trying to train to join a new professional team, and he ends up getting recommended to train with our heroine. And when he first meets her, he kind of underestimates her as just like this fun, bubbly blonde, but our heroine is a badass. She is an Olympic athlete, and when they start training together, she definitely puts him through his paces. One of the tropes in this book is opposites attract, grumpy sunshine, found family. I love them together. I was smiling like the whole book. The characters in the found family aspect are also really fun, so I was just cheesing it up this whole book. This question is fave book to movie adaptation. I don't really watch a ton of like adaptions, movies or TV shows. I mean, Bridgerton season 3 came out this year and that was really fun, so yeah, I guess Bridgerton. Next question is my favorite post or video. I would say I was really proud of the content that I was coming out with in the beginning of June. It was Pride Month, and I decided to do 2 weeks worth of posts on Instagram and also on YouTube recommending some of my favorite queer and LGBTQ romances. I featured so many different tropes and so many different authors, and I was really proud of that because those are some of my favorite books, and it was just a blast to kind of recommend them to you all. And it kind of tied into the video I posted at the end of the month, which was my coming out story. The video was so personal to me. I'm not going to get too much into it, but if you didn't know, I identify as a bisexual woman, and my coming out journey was not linear. It happened in the span of many years, and it took me a while to get there. It was a very emotional journey. I went through some traumatic, crazy things, some family members who didn't take it well, and it just, you know, it was never really felt comfortable talking about it. I would always get very emotional, but I just decided to sit down one day and film it and talk about it, and the response was so overwhelmingly positive. How many people related to what I was going through. I got so many messages of not only people supporting me, but, you know, saying that they really resonated with my story. Impact and that feeling of love and support surpasses anything that I will ever do on this channel. It's more than just recommending books because it's a part of who I am, and it's something that other people could relate to. I love you guys, and I love you guys. Thank you for the amazing responses to those videos, because I wouldn't be in this place of like happiness and joy if it wasn't also for you guys. So I want to make that really clear. Like, you guys are everything to me. This question is the most beautiful book that I've gotten this year, and I have to say, Sophie Lark has come out with some gorgeous books this year. You guys know Sophie's my girl. I fucking love her. She came out with this beautiful signing edition of Brittle Prince, and I was lucky enough to have her send this to me because I was not at that signing, but like, it is stunning. Foiled golden sprayed edges. There's like artwork inside as well. Just absolutely stunning. I cherish this book. It has a prime spot, prime real estate on my shelves. Gorgeous. And this was another book of hers that she did with Eternal Embers and Maya. It's Grimstone, and it's really just absolutely stunning. I actually love how it came like in this box, like the book just slips right in there. All of the Sophie Lark editions have just been so beautiful. I also really liked, and I'm so intrigued that a lot of publishers are now doing these gorgeous sprayed edges. Like, they're not really special editions. They're first editions that the publishers are coming out with. They're very easily accessible at Target and Barnes & Noble. I've seen them a lot with fantasies. Like, this one is 5 Broken Blades. Oh my goodness, those sprayed edges are stunning. This one is Heavenbreaker by Sarah Wolf. So cool. And I think it's fascinating that publishers are now doing these sprayed edges for a pretty reasonable price, and they're very accessible. These are even prettier than a lot of book boxes, like some special editions that are $50-$60. So I'm kind of interested to see like how book boxes are going to make their editions special when we're getting very accessible, very pretty hardcovers, especially like for fantasy books. I think Eternal Embers does a great job. Like, I love their special editions that, you know, they've done. Next question is books that you really need to read before the end of the year. I really want to continue in my Brandon Sanderson reading journey. I need to finish the Mistborn series. I need to finish Way of Kings. I need to, you know, really dive deeper into my Cosmere journey. So, Brandon Sanderson again. Anyways, my camera's gonna die, but that is the mid-year book freakout tag. So let me know your favorite book of the year. Go ahead and answer some of these questions. I'm really interested to know what you guys are enjoying this year and what you think I need to read. So yeah, let's chat in the comments down below. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Love you!